I watched a scary movie one time at my house while Val was gone. Don't ask me why. By myself, the kids are sleeping, and I'm like, I'm going to watch a scary movie. Last time I've ever watched a scary movie in my life, because I felt like I opened up a door for evil to just come into my home. And I was like, whoa, shut the door, shut the door. Life is like a roller coaster, but it's better when we go through it together. Welcome to the Candace Cameron Bure Podcast. We share conversations about life's challenges, celebrations, and everything in between. Season 7 is Becoming Better Parents with Dr. Josh and Christi Straub. Come join us. Hi, guys.
Hello. We're back.
We're back for another great week talking all things parenting. Parenting and this specific topic this week is shaping the atmosphere of our home. And I think it's pretty easy to walk into a home and feel like you know if it's a healthy home or it's an unhealthy home. I think that there's some pretty distinct differences. At least I feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I always find it too, I always kind of say it like this. It's like, you know, when you've gone to someone's house, maybe for dinner or a party or something, and you leave and you get back in your car and you're like, oh, and you're just like, I'm just glad to be back in my car.
Yes.
And then there's moments where you go to someone's house and you're like, you get back in your car and you're like, oh, whatever it is that they have, I want that.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you can tell that, and being able to identify that in our own home of, what's the chaos and peace. I always talk about fighting for peace in your home. Yeah. You have to war for peace. You have to pray into it. You have to fight for it, because the world is trying to create, it's just chaos, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to pay attention to the atmosphere of our home to identify how can we make sure that our homes are that place of,
What do you guys think that people feel when they walk into your home? I mean, I assume I know what you hope they feel.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Like, because it's like you hope they feel, we've always wanted it to feel like a hug, where it's like you can come in and it feels like home to you too. Like it's just like all are welcome here. But I think past that, I feel, we'll talk about maybe like our home right now, because we just moved a few months ago. And so we've been there maybe about 6 months now. And so even in this transition, we've moved out to the country. So we have animals, and it feels a little more like a circus. And the way I think we lived before was a little more like tidy and like put together. And I'm having to get used to.
Like, are you guys on a legit farm?
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah.
Can you just
like
tell us what that looks like?
We've got chickens and ducks now.
We're a work in progress. I mean, we're getting there.
Yeah. We're like adding things just a little bit at a time. We're keeping everything alive thus far. So that's good. But it's
dogs and cats.
Yes. Yeah. We have
any other
dogs,
cows,
cats,
pigs.
Our neighbors, they have the cows. So we take care of the cows too.
Okay.
We don't own
it's like
them, so that's the nice part about that. We get the cows.
It's like we're learning, but there's not as much pressure. But it's been...
So this is real country life. Sorry, I'm talking to the city girl. That's why I want to know all the things.
It's also, we decided to make that shift because we wanted our children were longing for it, first of all. And HOAs are not very chicken friendly. And so, there's a point at which you want to be able to, we wanted to support our children and what they were looking for and desiring. But also, even for us, we were trying to make sure.
Let's be honest. I really wanted the chickens too. I really did.
But for us, I want my children to learn to be resourceful. I want them to have responsibility. I want them to learn what that looks like. And so we've had them research ducks. They had to research the chickens. They had to do reports on them. They had to present the reports to us. And then they're the ones that I've hardly touched them. I built the chicken coop foundation, and of course I'm supporting them along the way. But we're putting this responsibility on them as a way for them to be resourceful and learn and take responsibility and that sort of thing, so that it's not all on us.
Got it.
But I think one of the big things about that is we're in a season, and this is where it's gone through the years, it's easy to see when you're in the survival years versus when you're in years where you go, oh, we need to open up our home. Our home needs to be a place. It needs to be an outpost where we can invite people in, where they can feel the love of Jesus, where they can, where we cultivate community. And for years, it wasn't that. It was, we were barely surviving. So to invite people over, it was like, it just felt chaotic.
Yeah. And do you feel like that partly because you have more space?
I think because we have more space in our inner being. Yeah. Partially. I think more space. I think there's physical space that matters. But I think also too, we have grown so much into who we are and casting vision for what we want other families to be. It's like being a glimpse. We want to be the family that people leave and go, whatever it is that they have, we want to cultivate whatever that is. You know, not that we want people to be like us, but we want to share a light and so that we can multiply that.
I also think that in saying you're inviting more people into the mix within your home, I felt that way too when my kids were around your kids' ages.
That makes sense.
So that does feel a little bit seasonal. Yep. So when the kids were really young, like unless someone wanted to come over and hold the kids or help change the diapers or something, I would welcome it. But that was not a time of hosting for me or even having visitors unless they really were okay to help. Yeah. But once the kids, I think, were like 4 and up, our home became that place too. Like we would have friends over every Sunday, every single week. I mean, that was like ritual in our home, and loved having that openness, but it also depended on what age the kids were. And then that also died down for us as the kids were in high school and then towards leaving for college.
Oh, wow.
Just
switches back.
It switched back for us. Yeah. But anyway.
And I think it's just important, you know, I look back, I mean, I think we hear things that people keep coming back. So I think that they like being at our house anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. You know, if they're coming back.
But we're just, you know, I want to be, you know, Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 3 to be living letters, that we are living letters. And part of what that means is, when you look at the commentary, is that when we have Jesus in our heart, we're basically the Ark of the Covenant. Everywhere we go, we carry the presence of Jesus with us. And we want people to feel that when they come into our home, when they come into our world, that they feel loved, that they feel seen, because that's going to then multiply with them as they go back into their home. And I think, as you said, I think age is a big part of that, because our kids are now 12, 10, and 4. And I feel like we finally have the capacity to be able to do that more.
Well, and I think we've put responsibility on them. So like they know, like we do a Friday night Shabbat every week. And it's like when we have families come for that, it's like they all have jobs, they all have roles. So it's not all on me. And I think that's what the difference has been too, is like you said, there's more space in us. I think there is more space in us because I've had to let a lot of stuff go. Like a lot of stuff, like the uptightness of like having the house clean and like the table set, or like just all the things that I think as women, we often take on as like, we need to have this together in order to have people in. That had to die in me. And now our house, it's hilarious because there's like kids running in and out, dogs running in and out, kittens running in and out, probably chickens running in and out. And we've just sort of let people in on, I mean, you could say it's chaos, but it's life. Like
it's life. It's fun.
It feels like full life. And that was full life, full house. It feels like we have this big dining table and everyone just kind of gathers around it. And it just feels like family more than like, I'm not entertaining anymore. I'm past that.
And we have Friday night, like when we have families over for Friday night, it's Friday night kid cleanup. Yeah. And so whether it's just our kids are teaching whoever we're having over, our guest kids, what it looks like to clean up. And so they're all doing it together while the adults get to sit and have dessert and conversation. And it's just everyone pitches in, and no one feels left out. It's just this sense of community. And I think that's what we're trying to cultivate. But I'll be honest, it's taken us a while to get there. I feel like we're fumbling through it and figuring it out. But at some point you just have to go, okay, we're ready for it. And it's brought a lot of life.
Yeah, that's great. I was thinking about atmosphere and what different homes look like. And, you know, I'm thinking about my own home when the kids were younger. Yeah. And I feel like mine was probably, I mean, I hope it was very comfortable for people and they felt very welcome. I mean, people did come over every week, but I can compare my home to like my sister's home, and she has 5 kids. This is one of my sisters, Melissa.
Yeah.
She has 5 kids, homeschools all of them, and is an incredible mom. But I could walk into her home and I'm like, whoa, like the toys, the school supplies, the things, it just was like a little bit of chaos at times. And I'm like, I don't think I could live with that. And then, you know, in my home, it needed to be clean. And at the end of the day, I think we recited whatever Barney song was on, and it was like, clean up,
Oh, we do that.
Everywhere, clean up. And it was just like the house had to be clean. And there were times in my life where that became more important to me than the joy of the kids and what we were doing, and could be really stressful for me. So it was also, the cleanup was also important to Val. And I think and not that my sister's not a tidy person. I think she would love if her home were clean, but that wasn't fitting for their lifestyle and homeschooling, and something she just had to let go. And yet I could walk into her home, and while there were times when I'm like, I don't think I could live with all of this stuff, there was a freedom in it that I was jealous of.
Wow.
That I'm like, but I wish I could. And I wish I could just be okay with the pencils and the crayons. Yeah. And it's not like it was strewn all around like disastrous. It wasn't like that. But I was like, I wish I could have been comfortable with it. And I envied that my sister was like, hey man, I'm more about doing life. I'm more about teaching my kids how to do this and that. And her kids were at 3 years old making lattes with the espresso machine or whatever for dad in the morning, like foaming the milk and everything. And she has these great stories that, especially as homeschool kids, some people could say like, oh, you're one of those. And yet you look at her kids, and at the youngest of ages, was like the most incredible mom. And her kids were doing things that I was like, oh yeah, my kids don't know how to do that. And she's like, yeah, because they're home and because I teach them every day. And there's nothing they're too young to do. And there's no amount of responsibility that they aren't, capable of, within their age range or things. And so I was like, this is incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
but sometimes I feel like the atmosphere in my home might have been a little bit more, I don't want to say tight or uptight or stuffy. I don't think it was that, but I wish there was a little bit more freedom.
But yet, as the kids got older, as you said, you opened your house up. So
for sure.
Some of that had to have been let go for life to happen. Because I hear you saying is, especially in the early years, the toddler years, the crayons are everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I could not have a toy on the ground before I went to bed. Everything had to be put away.
Wow.
I can kind of feel that actually.
And that's more, I think we've had to figure that out. Like, cause even for me, like when cause we do homeschool and there's stuff, like there's just all their books and stuff, and it's part of it. But when it's all left out, it really does cause like an up leveling in me. If we go back to our little nervous system ladder, like I start to feel it, and it's
because
super real.
Looking at what can look like chaos will create chaos in you. It can be really stressful. Yeah.
And that's why I think the physical environment, as we talk about the atmosphere of our home and making it life-giving, I think we have to identify what does the physical environment of our home look like, and what do we have to do to make sure that our physical environment is conducive to what our nervous system can handle in a lot of ways, right? And so, I do like, but then also challenging, I constantly challenge myself at the end of a day to, if the dishes, let's say it's a night where we have dinner and the dishes don't get done because we're having a family outing and we're like, okay, we're just going to eat dinner. The sun is out. It is gorgeous out. Let's go for a hike. Forget the dishes. We'll worry about them later. But then we get home and we're tucking kids in bed and I see those dishes in the sink and I see the kitchen look like it does. And I'm going, what do I do? Like, for me to challenge myself to say, you know what? I can handle that tomorrow, and I can go to bed tonight and I can relax, and it will take, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just paying attention to those things, those nuances for each of us, to cultivate a physical atmosphere that helps us, that does help us feel like we're at peace.
Yeah. What strikes me is like, you're kind of talking, it's almost like in everything, there is this spectrum, right? So there's like total cleanliness and orderliness and then chaos. And I think we've done this. In the Famous at Home book, we have an assessment that sort of allows you to just sort of, what is the feel of your home? Like, what does it feel like right now? Is it peaceful? Is it chaotic? Is it a spirit of complaining, or is there gratitude? And everything exists on the spectrum. And so we have this assessment in there where it allows you to just kind of evaluate, like, where are we at right now? You know, so maybe like you and your husband can take it, or even your kids, to realize, like, where are we sort of as a family? Where do we ballpark? Because we may not need it to be perfectly ordered like we used to. Maybe it is time to sort of go more midline where, you know, we keep it clean, but we feel grateful. We feel we're not complaining. We're not, you know, at each other of like, clean this up. Cause then that becomes really like, the whole environment of the home then shifts to sort of this fear-based almost, where it's like we're all on edge because, you know, mom's going to come in and like demand us to do this. And so I think that's been really helpful for us to sort of evaluate, like, where are we at these days?
The other thing is to identify that. So you talked about complaining, where, you know, our kids were in a season of just complaining, you know, and it just, that just irks at me. But at the same time, I complain. And so I would encourage to find what is the one area that you might need. Maybe it's exhaustion, maybe it's anger, maybe it's complaining, maybe it's fear. What is the spirit in your home that you just feel like this is bringing us all down as a family? And identifying that and being able to say, okay, what is one small shift we can make to be able to start shifting the atmosphere in that way? And so, for example, during the season of complaining, we decided to put a complaining jar together, where what we would do is, if we caught our kids complaining, they had to put a quarter out of their piggy banks into the jar. And for a while, it would increase in money. And the kids were like, can we earn it back? Can we earn it back? And we got to a point where we said, you know what? No, we're not going to earn it back. But what we can do is, when we have to add to the jar, we'll donate it. We'll either give it to church or we'll donate it to a cause. And part of that was to go, let's help out others and realize how grateful we actually are. We don't need to be complaining and grumbling about things that we don't need to be complaining and grumbling about. And then we flipped it so that if the kids caught us grumbling and complaining, we had to put $1 in the jar. And so it was one of those things that really held everybody accountable, but we all paid attention to it. So now all of a sudden, everyone is paying attention to who's grumbling, who's complaining, and it started to shift slowly the atmosphere of our home.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just really important, just as a practical, find that one thing that it is, and then just simply make a shift as to what that could be. It could very well be too that it's something in your marriage. You know, one of the things that Christi and I decided to do recently is we have this porch swing, and just after the kids were in bed, we were realizing we weren't connecting as much on, and we were at each other a little bit. It was, you know, Christi would be like, well, did you check the calendar? You know, I'm scheduling something when she had something, and we're, you know, and well, did you check the calendar? No, I didn't check the calendar. Well, we need to sit down maybe at night, and we need to have a little. So we just started sitting down at night on the swing after the kids are in bed, just to reconnect. One small shift that allowed us to be able to reconnect on what the week was happening, what the next day was going to hold. And it just started to shift how we were treating one another. And so just small little ways that we were treating, not passive aggressive, not, you know, but where we were on the same team and felt like on the same team.
The Declaration of Independence states, we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm happiest when I'm having a great meal and making memories at the table with my family. Good Ranchers can help you do both of those things by delivering high-quality American meat right to your door. Their meat is the highest quality, it's transparently sourced, and I think your family will love it. Mine does. Don't miss out on their July special. Go get yourself $100 off and free Wagyu burgers for a year with my code CANDY at goodranchers.com. You'll never go back to the meat aisle again once you try Good Ranchers quality. 100% USA grown. No antibiotics or hormones added. I could keep listing the benefits, or you could just try it and see for yourself. The proof is in their protein. Here's my absolute favorite part about Good Ranchers, though. They're a company that is built by people who care. The founders, Ben and Coralie Spell, wanted food they could trust for their kids and couldn't find a convenient, transparent source of American meat. So they embraced the American spirit and came up with a solution we all needed. Go join the meat revolution and claim your independence from the meat aisle at goodranchers.com with my code CANDY. $100 off and free burgers for a year. What? Don't miss out on this offer. Go try Good Ranchers today at goodranchers.com. American meat delivered.
I'm going to go to a listener question early because I think it's something that we're going to really want to talk about here. Yeah. Okay, this one's from Lauren. She writes in and says, I find it so overwhelming to parent in this society. I feel like I'm alone in thinking social media, phones, hundreds of activities. It's all way too much. How do you align your Christian values with your parenting in a society obsessed with social media and constant activities?
Ooh, this speaks to, okay, so we talked about the physical environment of your home. Now we're talking about what does the spiritual environment of your home look like? What does the emotional environment of your home look like? And this is one of those questions where I think what's fascinating to me is we have to pay attention to, for me, we would not be out on land. We would not be living a more simplified life if it weren't for the other men in my life giving me permission to do that. I think we live in a culture that is very, like she said, I feel like I'm alone in thinking social media, phones, hundreds of activities is all just too much.
Yeah.
I remember when we had Landon in T-ball early on, he was like 4 or 5 years old. And we were at that time going only one activity at a time. And I asked him, I said, hey buddy, do you want to play T-ball or do you want to take guitar lessons? And his face lit up like a Christmas tree in a Hallmark movie and was like, I want to take guitar lessons, Dad. And so I was like, okay, you're not going to play T-ball this year. Well, I remember a couple of weeks later, I was out in the cul-de-sac of our neighborhood and a fellow dad whose son was the same age as Landon came down and we were having a conversation. And he said, hey, did you put Landon in T-ball? Is he going to play again? And I said, no. I said, we decided to take him out. He didn't really want to do it. He wants to play guitar. And the dad looked at me as if I had 3 heads. And he's like, do you realize if you don't get him back in by the time he's 10, he'll be so far behind, he won't be able to catch up? And you could just feel the anxiety coming from this father onto me. And I'm like, that's the Instagram culture we live in. It's no wonder Lauren feels alone, because if we absorb the cultural pressures of activities and social media and all these things, we will feel alone. And I just want to say this, take permission to live differently. I think we have to have permission to live differently. And I'm giving you permission to live differently, but without the other fathers and husbands and other men in my life and other families who've come alongside us and we have surrounded ourselves with, it would be very difficult to do that in this culture. To go against the grain, we've got to surround ourselves with community and other families who think and live at the same levels.
Yeah.
And so I would just highly encourage you to find other families who are in the same level and who have children the same age, so that those children your child is not the only one who's not on social media. Your child's not the only one who's not on these things. And that there's conversation around it. So it's not just the sense of, nope, you're not doing it and that's it. There's conversation around why we're not doing those things. And I also think we as parents have to model for our kids what that lifestyle looks like as well. We have to be very careful about our time on social media and things like that.
That was part of the reason I think we even started like the Famous at Home podcast. No, as you're talking, we realized like people need a community. They need other voices that are speaking in a different way of doing family and leading their family. That's not the cultural way, because we're seeing how that's panning out and people are exhausted and marriages are falling apart and kids are struggling with anxiety and depression in just epic numbers. And you know, when you do look at like the research, they're saying like it all comes back to the home. Like all of these things can come, like, I think we just have felt in these last years, this call back home. Like we've outsourced so much of our living to even to like, and we're counselors, but like even to therapists, even like we're sending our kids out when I really think the Lord's saying like, bring them home. And I'm not saying like homeschool is the only way. I'm not even talking about education necessarily, but like in the raising of our kids, like even within our church, I've noticed they've, noticed this shift of like, here, you disciple my kids. Like you teach my kids the word, you teach. And they're like, no, we get them one day a week for like an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. They need to be getting this from you too. And I think it also speaks to parents, their level of overwhelm. Like they're so busy too that they don't have time for this stuff. Yeah. And so it also feels, which feeds the insecurity of like, I'm not doing this well. And so therefore outsourcing my kids makes more sense because, maybe somebody else will do a better job. And I just think we have been given everything that we need to raise these kids in a way that's simpler, that actually fosters discipleship really within the home.
I feel like in a very good way that the pendulum is swinging again because I look at so many of my friends, my family included, and I refer to my sister Melissa because she still has young ones. She has 5 and her youngest is 8, I believe, up to 18. And they did it differently. They went against the grain and even as far as activities and phones and social media, like they're not on it. Yeah. And I love her kids so much. Like I love them. I love all my nieces and nephews. Yeah. They're all wonderful and they're all different. But I look at the investment that Melissa put into her children and I look at the woman she is, like, it's going to make me cry. She's awesome. She's awesome. And
wow.
Yeah. I treasure her. And
what is one thing that you've seen in her that helped her cultivate that atmosphere? Because she's the type of woman that I go, I want to have lunch with you. Teach me everything that you've learned.
You know what? Don't know. Okay. Sorry. Why I'm crying. So Melissa and I are the closest in siblings. We're a year and a half apart. And I would say of my 3 siblings, Melissa and I are the closest to each other. However, we're really different people, like really different in the sense that I'm a public person. I'm camera, lights, action, lights, camera, action. Sorry. And I live my life very outwardly and publicly. And Melissa's not that way. And she just invests all of it into her family and her marriage and raising her children. And again, she's okay with the mess, but in like the most peaceful way.
Wow.
And so those are things that I'm like, oh, God did not give me that heart. But I can learn from her. So I love it. We complement each other really well because in the same way, I help her get her out of her comfort zone. Yeah. And
that's good.
Yeah. And so being with people and all of that. But so what was your question? Like, what are the things that are
like what would you look at for her that helped her like create that environment, that cultivated that environment? What were the characteristics in her? I mean, did she have other community that helped give her permission to do this?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like part of it's her personality.
Yeah. And I'm sure community's been a big part of it, especially within the homeschooling community. Yeah. I think you draw a lot from that. But I also, and I don't want to speak for her because I'm not entirely sure, but I think there were just things that she wanted to do differently than my mom and dad did with us. Yeah. And being, my brother and his wife, Chelsea, they homeschooled their 6 kids. It was just me and my sister, Bridget. We're the ones that sent them to like a mix of private Christian school, public school. I tried homeschooling. It just was not for me. Val was like, please, let's put them back in school. So Bridget and I, went the different, more traditional school routes. And then Kirk and Melissa, their families did homeschooling. But I feel like even Melissa just figuring that out for herself, having moved to different cities along the way, even and finding those communities.
Yeah.
I mean, that has built her character in unbelievable ways. But I think she's also a nurturer by nature. You know, we all say, my dad jokes all the time. He's like, well, we all know when I need help, and my dad's 80 and he's in really good health, but he's like, when I can't do it anymore, we all know who's going to take care of me. It's going to be Melissa. It's already planned out.
Amazing. You know, I look at this and I go, you know, these are kids who, I want our children, and it sounds like your nieces and nephews are very similar to this. It's because they're being raised outside of the norm.
Yes.
They have this confidence about who they are. And I see this in, there's a particular family that we look up to that they've done the exact same thing. And what I see though, is these are people that you want to call when you're in trouble, or you need help, or you need, and I think that's what we want to cultivate in this. I think that's what we as believers want to be. We want to be the place. We want to be the respite when people are hurting, when they're in trouble, when they're in pain. And I want my children to understand what that means too, for them to live that out one day, because their friends are going to be in trouble and they're going to, and I think for all of us to be able to have that, that's what I want to cultivate in my children. I want them to be able to advance the kingdom, advance the kingdom of God through the way that they connect with other people. And when we're caught up in the busyness and the rat race that is the Western world that we live in, it is very difficult to be that, because you're looking for it.
Right.
And you have to get outside of it in order to find it, in order to be it.
I will say I'm very grateful looking back and raising my kids. So I'm that generation that has learned social media. Like, I'm the first generation of raising kids with social media.
Yep.
Because it wasn't even around when my kids were younger. So I'm trying to think when I got my first smartphone, because like there were still Blackberries around when my kids were younger. We didn't have smartphones yet. But my timeline might be off, but I feel like they kind of came around when Natasha was maybe in like 5th grade or 4th grade, something like that.
Wow.
So even with that, it was different in navigating social media with my kids. It looks different today, even from 10 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And my kids got their cell phones later in life, but I don't feel like it was as big of a deal, because not everyone had a cell phone, let alone everyone had a cell phone at 8 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I want to ask this question, because I think this is important too, to kind of transition into this as well, is when it comes to music or television shows or movies or those types of things too. I know you had alluded to this earlier, kind of some of the ways that you navigated that, because social media is one thing, but then there's this, as we think about the atmosphere of our home, one of the things that we do is put worship music on, because it shifts things.
Right.
What were some of the, ways that you led in the atmosphere of your home in that regard?
Well, I mean, in a spiritual sense, I had a video I posted not too long ago. There was this atmosphere of complaining in our house, but my kids were older. Again, this is couple years ago. And I realized at one moment that, there is a spirit of complaining in my house. Yeah. It's not just about the complaining.
Yeah.
And I realized it was from the spiritual realm. And so at that moment, once I recognized it, I prayed out my house. I put on my worship music in the house, in all the rooms, to leave. And the atmosphere changed instantly in my home.
Wow.
That's why. Because, go ahead.
I could share one more story with you.
Yep.
We lived in a haunted house for a year. It was a rental house, and we knew the second we walked into it, when the day we moved in, that something was off in that house. there was just some bad stuff. I hate saying bad vibes, but there was just some bad juju in that house, right?
Yeah.
And it let us know. And I know that sounds so weird to say, but the house let us know. It wasn't that happy we were in there.
Yep.
I can't explain it. It was weird. It kind of blew my mind. But anyway, it
didn't like what you were carrying into that house.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It didn't like what you were
I didn't
carrying
even
in.
think about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So at one point we had signed a 2-year lease on this house. We were almost a year into it. Not quite. But at one point Val had left and he did this show called Battle of the Blades. And it was a competition show.
I remember that show.
So in Canada.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Dancing with the Stars, but hockey players on ice with a figure skater.
Canadians love it. It's amazing.
So he was gone. He ended up winning that season, but it's a competition show. So you go week to week and it was 12 weeks. So he ended up winning. So he was gone all 12 weeks.
Wow.
So I was at home with the kids. Well, some real bad stuff started happening in that house when Val left. And it just knew I did not have my husband and protector of my home in there.
Yeah.
Although Jesus was with me, right?
Yeah.
And one day, Lev came up to me and he said, Mommy, I've just been sleeping so bad. And I'm not sleeping well at night. Yeah. And I knew there was just icky stuff in the house, but I didn't want to show the kids fear or anything like that. And so we prayed together and I'm like, buddy, I'm going to pray for a good night's sleep. And we prayed all the things. Well, once the kids went to bed, Mama,
here she comes.
The oil.
Yeah.
I anointed every door frame, every window in that house. I prayed out every single room for anything that was demonic in that house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Spirit of Jesus was already in my house, but just invited the Holy Spirit back in to flood my house and overpower anything that would have been in there. And then I wrote scripture on some little 3x5 cards and I stuck several of them under my kids' mattresses to just, the word of God was over them. And of course, I didn't tell my kids any of this. This is just crazy me, doing my thing. But the very next morning, Lev woke up and he came to me and he goes, Mom, I had the best night's sleep last night. And I was like, I just shifted the atmosphere in that haunted house, man.
Yes, you did. You evicted it.
Yeah. By the way, we ended up breaking our lease real early and we moved out real quick. We moved out very quickly after that.
Yeah. I just think we, as followers of Jesus, we carry the authority of Jesus with us. And then therefore we have the authority to kick out anything that is not of him in our home and in things that do happen. And so I think it's important to do those prayer walks around your home, to anoint our homes with oil, to pray those things. We, even just recently prayed and learned a lot of this through John Eldridge's ministry, but you just even praying a canopy over your home at night and repairing that canopy and just asking the glory of God to be in that canopy to protect our dreams and to be, and just praying the spirit of peace. And I just think there's something special about being able to seek Jesus and pray that on earth as it is in heaven over our homes and have that shift the atmosphere of the house.
And I think too is like starting to trust our kids in their discernment because I think they are so sharp. Yeah. Like Lev picked it up. He knew there was like something, Mom, I'm not sleeping in this house. And that's something I think, again, our kids are, older but starting to trust the voice of God in them and for teaching them to trust the voice of God in them and the Holy Spirit in them to reveal things. Like I could tell story after story of the things our kids will pick up in the spirit where there's no way they know that. There's no way. Kennedy is driving these streets. We landed in LA yesterday, driving these streets and she is praying. She literally has her hand out the window and she's praying and she goes, Lord, I just thank you for all of the beauty here, even despite all of the people that are hurting so much.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
my heart.
I'm like, yeah, like because she's seeing all the homeless, you know, on the road.
And I'm like, oh, as a father, I'm just going, where are you getting these prayers from?
Yeah. And it's like,
I mean, I know where she picks it up, but
I think that too, because like I felt like, you know, spiritual warfare, and we all have had different kind of understandings of it or growing up with it. And I think what I've started to really understand is it's just our authority as kingdom kids. We're sons and daughters of the Most High God, and we carry that authority with us. And I think one of the most powerful things is teaching our kids that they have that authority too. And so there was times that we protected our kids, you know, we're like, not, you know, don't say that, or don't, you know. And then I realized I'm not helping them by hiding the thing that the enemy's trying to hide right now, you know, whatever that is, that spirit of complaining, that spirit. I mean, we have dealt with spirits of rebellion. We have dealt with, things that like, and again, if you're not familiar with that, that's not to be like a scary thing. It's just the way.
Yeah. Or woo-woo in any
right.
No, I just think it's important to understand that the supernatural world is more real than the chairs we're sitting in right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so
that's very true.
Sometimes we think we're dealing with an issue in the natural, like with one of our kids, like, and it's not. It's actually a spiritual thing that is attached or is influenced or has come in. And that goes back to our question, which I don't even know how well we answered it, but we're talking about like the things that we watch and the things, the music that we let our kids listen to. We have become so careful of the things that we turn on in our home and allow.
Same.
Because they're like open doors. We're opening the door and allowing access of things that we say we don't want, but then we're like, well, it's just a movie.
I was that mom that didn't let my kids watch Disney Channel or Nickelodeon growing up. And, you know, it bummed them out. But I was like, I don't like the way those kids talk to their parents. I don't like the dialogue. I don't want you learning it. I don't. And even scary movies. I watched a scary movie one time at my house while Val was gone. Don't ask me why. By myself. The kids are sleeping. And I'm like, I'm going to watch a scary movie. Last time I've ever watched a scary movie in my life, because I felt like I opened up a door for evil to just come into my home. And I was like, whoa, shut the door. But it rocked my world so much that I was like, I will never allow that. Something demonic, even though it's just a movie. I know how they make it.
Yeah, right.
I see the camera. I mean, I know that the person's behind the camera right there. I know the guy, sound guy has got a boom. I know these are all actors with their lines. I know someone's but I'm like, nope.
But that TV is a portal.
It's a portal and it opens up. And it's the last time I've ever allowed that in my home.
And I think like here we make, just to like on that, here we've allowed like horror films and the whole thing. And I'm not blaming just them. I mean, we could go into sex and all the things that we show on TV. And then we wonder why we're dealing with kids with rampant anxiety, adults with rampant anxiety. We're literally entertaining ourselves by watching, being terrified. And how many times does Jesus have to say, like, do not fear, do not fear, do not fear.
Yeah.
And then we keep watching it, or we just, again, just in little doses.
Like, God, why am I so scared?
Yeah.
He's like, well, stop watching
because we're training our right brain, which is a faster processing part of the brain, to live in fear and anxiety. And especially if you watch the 24/7 news cycle, like there is a correlation between, and again, you could say that social media and technology have also increased in these years, but the 24-hour breaking news cycle didn't really start until the early 2000s. But you also see a rise in anxiety almost directly up as a result of that. Why? Because fear sells. And so we're going to just 24-hour breaking news cycle. So if you have that on in your home constantly, there's a spirit of fear coming through that portal into the atmosphere of your home that we have to pay attention to. And what it does is it wires our brain and the atmosphere of our home for those things. Yeah. And so it's just important to be aware.
Okay. I have one more thing I feel like I need to say.
Please do.
One issue that we talked about when we were talking about the environment of our home. This is the most recent one. And I think it's really applicable to what we're talking about right now. It's speaking life and death. Realizing the literal power of the tongue that is, we are either speaking life or we're speaking death, but especially as parents, I did webinar with a group of women last week and was talking about reclaiming your voice. And so like the life and death is in the power of the tongue. So we're speaking life or we're blessing or cursing, but realizing even in my just deep dive into that, when we have authority over lives, if that's like a pastor has over his, congregation, as parents over our children, the words that we say to them, about them, speaking of them, carry so much authority. Mm-hmm. And I was so convicted of the ways that I've, we'll just offhandedly say like, oh yeah, she's always struggled with, anxiety, or he's my anxious one, or, like you're so much, you're too much. And I was like in the pit of my stomach, convicted of the places where I've spoken a literal word curse over my children, like not meaning to.
Right.
But like, oh, you always, you never. Like we're speaking things into existence versus as parents using that authority to speak into them life and blessing and who they really are. Like, which is I think where my daughter has learned. She went through a little bout of worry, she calls, and it was like something just sort of came over her. Mm-hmm. And it was a season where she was not a worried kid. Like she's not that way. And something just shifted and she was worried about everything. And we were very careful to pray with her and talk to her about how she can pray. This is not, it's not my anxiety.
Right, it's not who she is.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I would like people who call it, my anxiety. It's like, you're claiming it. It's you. It's part of you. Right. It's not yours, but it's an experience. Like I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling worried or that's real. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. But let's not claim and bring into us and make identity with these things that God's like, no, girl, I came to set you free. And so now to watch her pray with authority, not just over herself, but over other kids is like, I just wish I'd known that then.
Yeah.
But I know now as a parent, I carry that authority for them and I have to be so careful the words I use.
Yeah. This is so good. I don't want this conversation to end, but we'll be back next week.
Sounds great.
And also remember, we have a free download for you called The Healthy Home Guide. It's adapted from Dr. Josh and Christi's book, Famous at Home. It also includes a colorful kids feelings chart that you can print out and put on your fridge. You can get it at Candace.com. It's also in our show notes. Okay, guys, come join us next week. And until then, be grateful all day, every day. If you value local, trustworthy, and high-quality food, now is the perfect time to join the Good Ranchers family. I was thrilled when my first Good Ranchers box showed up and it was all still perfectly frozen. And what I really love about Good Ranchers is their commitment to transparency. They believe you have the right to know exactly what's in your food. I mean, hello. And they're also amazing supporters of this show. Good Ranchers sources all of their meat from local U.S. farms, so you're getting the best of the best. No antibiotics, no added hormones, just pure, delicious meat you can trust. And do you ever notice when you're in the store, when you buy chicken or beef, it costs more and the portions way less every time you buy it? But imagine having top quality, 100% American beef, chicken, pork, and wild-caught seafood delivered right to your door. Just head over to GoodRanchers.com and subscribe to any box to unlock savings. Good Ranchers is where you can get 100% USA grown meat you can trust that's tender and full of flavor every single time. With meat prices continuing to go up and the quality at the store going down, Good Ranchers can save you hundreds. Your taste buds, your wallet, and local ranchers will thank you. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. I hope you're loving these conversations as much as I am. Would you give me a thumbs up if this one felt encouraging? CandyRock Entertainment, all rights reserved.